The Sacramento Kings were flying at day one of training camp, with pace and conditioning being a major focal point. Plus, the leadership of new Kings point guard Dennis Schroder was a massive theme of the day. You'll hear from Schroder, Zack Lavine, and head coach Doug Christie right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all preseason and soon to be regular season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. It was so good to be back in the Sacramento Kings practice facility that actually looked like a practice facility, not the media station takeover that the practice facility was turned into yesterday for Media Day. Today, it was just two basketball courts, a lot of basketballs, a lot of squeaking sneakers, and a lot of sweat and hard work as the Sacramento Kings get ready for hopefully a season where they will catch the league and people like myself and their own fans by surprise, by hopefully being a very we know they're a talented team, by hopefully finding a way to get that talent to work together cohesively in order to win basketball games in a infinitely difficult Western Conference. I was there inside the practice facility. They let us in for the final 10 or so minutes of practice. Then we got to speak with Dennis Schroder, Zack Lavine, and head coach Doug Christie. You're going to hear from all three of them on this show today. But let me share with you my takeaways from the limited time that I was in there and what I noticed being in there. So we walk in, and from the entrance that we have into the Kings practice facility, it's a long hallway, right? And at the very end is a door that leads into the practice facility. And immediately, as soon as we start walking through this hallway to get to the practice facility itself, we just hear how loud it is. We hear yelling. We hear clapping. And we walk through the door, and immediately on the court right in front of us is a full-blown, full-scale, fast break, full court sprint layup drill, where it was, I believe, 2 minutes were on the clock. And for 2 straight minutes, there were groups on each side that one on each side of the floor would go parallel to each other and lay up on the other end. They'd get the rebound, pass it ahead to an assistant coach who would then drop the ball back off to them. They'd go with the layup, and it's just full sprint back and forth. It's a little more fun way of essentially running like suicide lines or sprints, right? Just the pace and the speed and the energy on full display right away. And Doug Christie is standing in the middle of the court, and he is shouting, not like screaming and yelling at people, but just communicating, talking, encouraging, constantly clapping his hands, encouraging his teammates, but also challenging them, saying things like, "Why are we tired? Push, go, go, go." At one point, he, in a bantery way, not in a like hostile way, called out, I think it was Kings rookie Maxime Reynaud for missing a layup, and kind of was getting on Maxime for missing the layup in the drill. Just coaching, being his normal, vocal, aggressive self. Right away, we could tell pace and speed and conditioning was the primary focus of day one of training camp. 94 feet is a term that the Kings might want to just put on a t-shirt at this point, because we have heard so many different players, and of course head coach Doug Christie himself, talk about 94 feet, the length of the floor. And when you say 94 feet in basketball, what you're essentially referencing is defending for all 94 feet. That is a staple of what Doug Christie's team is going to be. I said going into training camp, we wanted to learn what Doug Christie's team would be. And a clear indication of Doug Christie and how he imposes himself on his team is going to be defending for all 94 feet, meaning full court pressure. And you have to have really, really good conditioning to be able to do that. That is the expectation that he is setting, the standard that he is setting right away from the jump, day one of training camp for this team. And Christie also shared with us that he wants the Kings to be the most well-conditioned team in the league. He doesn't just want them to be in shape well enough to be able to defend for all 94 feet. He wants this team to be the most conditioned team in the league, to where they are capable of outworking anybody and everybody on any given night. Yesterday during Kings Media Day, Christie gave us a little glimpse on what he wants to do with his rotation. He says he wants to have a 10-man rotation because the way he expects his team to play is exhausting. It's tiring. And he says, I'm going to need essentially 5 guys off the bench that are ready to go to give my 5 starters a breather. We're going to need 10 guys to play, and I can have enough bodies out there to where I can demand this effort from them. So conditioning, 94 feet, very apparent right from the jump for this Kings team. In the huddle at the end of practice, Doug spend some time addressing the team. And it was hard to hear because it's kind of on the opposite end of the court from where we're at. But what I did pick up is Doug turns to Dennis Schroder, his point guard, and essentially empowers him. I couldn't tell you what he said verbatim, but essentially says, like, if you see something, like, call it out. I'm empowering you. Like, I got your back. We will support you. Like, if you see some BS, call it out. You're my point guard. You're my leader. In that sense. So obvious empowerment of Dennis Schroder's leadership. And very quickly, as you're going to hear from Doug, Dennis, and Zach on this podcast today, Dennis Schroder's leadership was probably the biggest theme or the biggest takeaway that I had from this training camp today. We questioned how much the Eurobasket MVP and playing in the European or Eurobasket tournament for Germany and leading them to a title, how much of an impact that was going to have on Dennis hitting the ground running with his new team here in Sacramento. Seems like he's been huge for this team right away, especially from a leadership standpoint. Speaking of Schroder, he and Zack Lavine were the last guys to leave practice today. Both of them stayed to get a little extra shot work up individually, and they were the last 2 out of the practice facility. And we got to speak with both of them. So I'm going to play with you the best bits from Dennis Schroder and what he had to say after his first day of training camp with the Sacramento Kings.
What stood out to you about the way that Doug runs things?
He's direct. Want that dog mentality that we pressure full court. Wants it, to be together as a team, as a unit. And we got to work on those things.
It seems like pace is a big focus. You guys running at the end there. Just how does that play into your guys' strengths?
I think that's great. I mean, we got so many talented guys who can, play in fast break. We got a lot of fast break points. Zack Lavine, Domas who can run as a big man. Keegan, Debo. I think that's great basketball. Everybody's touching it. You're gonna get easy layups and easy threes from it. So. We just gotta, keep going at it and get better at it.
People talk about like building chemistry with new surroundings. From your experience, you've been in a lot of those. Just where do you see when that things start coming together? Like, what do you have to see signs of that happening?
I think when you can keep everybody accountable. If I can go to somebody and say, hey, you bull, you got to do better, and he takes it as a positive. I think we're heading into the right direction. Same as when somebody else coming to me and say you got to be better. And I honor it and try to be better. I think that's when we're heading into the right direction. And I think everybody just got to get comfortable with that. And, yeah.
Is Doug encouraging you to be more of a vocal leader as a point guard?
Yeah, I think, but it's everyone. Everybody just got to be willing to be vocal, willing to listen, willing to, speak out about things when you got something in mind. But at the end of the day, I'm always honest. I'm never, going to somebody's bag and not saying something. I'm always honest, and I want that for my teammates as well. And I think that's the reason why, Doug and the organization got me.
Going back to the honesty, what did you see that was the best from today with this group on day one, and anything you saw that needs to just be sharpened or honed in for the next few days?
I mean, first day, coming together, I never practiced with those guys first day to come together, and already have a feel for everybody, playing 5-on-5, defensive drills. I think we got to get better on every single one of them because we did practice a lot and we just got to keep getting better every single day, 1% better, focus on that, come together as a team, maybe do something off the court, and then move on.
It's starting to become extremely clear to me why Doug Christie and Scott Perry specifically labeled Dennis Schroder as the guy, the point guard that they wanted to go out and get in free agency, right? I mean, his veteran leadership is something that is being talked about a lot. Now, we have to be careful not to overreact to too many things because Dennis has his limitations as a point guard. He's obviously not the best or one of the best point guards in the league, but he's been around the league. He's had an extremely successful career. He's had a tremendous amount of success internationally, which is incredible. Dennis Schroder's the extension of Doug Christie that Dennis Schroder is going to be charged to be. And I remember having earlier in this offseason, having a conversation with my guy, Big Dave from the Locked On Bulls podcast. And he talked about how Zack Lavine and DeMar DeRozan were at their best together when Lonzo Ball was healthy, when they had a point guard to run the ship, right? That is going to be Dennis Schroder's responsibility. And of course, Schroder has a great ability as a scoring guard, right? But the playmaking and the leadership, that's going to be the most important thing that the Sacramento Kings need out of him. And the fact that day one, we're hearing it being talked about in such a positive way. We'll have to wait and see when the games actually start, which, by the way, we have a preseason game coming up in like 8 days on October 8th, I believe. So it's going to be pretty soon that we'll get to see these guys in action for the first time. But when the games for real start, and also when the adversity starts, how does Dennis handle that as a leader, and how does the team rally around Dennis as an extension of Doug Christie? But to me, day one, it's a very, very positive sign to hear people talking about Dennis Schroder as a leader the way that they are, and for Dennis to talk about being empowered and stepping up as a leader and being able to, like he said, call out the BS of players and them take it as a positive, not as a negative. That's a really, really encouraging sign and a really encouraging start. Still going to hear from Doug Christie and Zack Lavine. We'll get to both of them here in just a second. Before that, though, I want to let you know that today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. While basketball season is still a little bit of a ways away, the NFL, well, it's in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can use it on more football. You can use it for season-long NBA bets, betting on who you think is going to be the MVP or the NBA champion, or if the Kings will win more than, I think it was like set at like 36.5 wins. You can use it to bet on playoff baseball that has begun in the MLB. But with football, it makes football so much more exciting because you've got a little something else riding on the action, whether you're watching your favorite team or just following a game to see how a player or two in that game will fare for your fantasy lineup. If you're a casual fan or you love to dive in deep into the stats and things like that, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Not only is it day one of Sacramento Kings training camp, it's easy to forget because he took over late December of last year that this is the first day of training camp for Doug Christie as a full-time NBA head coach. And while he's been around this game his entire life at an extremely high level, I imagine Doug was... he's talked about how little rest that he's gotten since he took over the coaching responsibilities. I imagine Doug has been, for lack of a better term, torturing himself over these summer months to prepare and make the most of these hours and days that they have together. By the way, a takeaway that I forgot to mention is that the Kings practiced twice today. There was the morning practice, which is the one that we were at, and then they also practiced this evening. So 2-a-days as of now to really maximize the time together. But here is Doug Christie talking with the media about the pace, about the conditioning, and the leadership of Dennis Schroder after his first day of training camp as a full-time head coach.
Our narrative from, myself and Scott P is we're going to be the best conditioned team in the NBA. One of the top ones for sure. So trying to figure out and them buying into that has been a message that they've received, since I took over and Scott was the general manager. So it's just all about us being willing to give of ourselves, and it's tough, man. Conditioning is not for everybody. And then being in the conditioning to be the best conditioned team in this league definitely ain't for everybody. But it's what a Sacramento King is about.
How do you see Dennis getting acclimated with everything?
Man, Dennis looked like he's been here his whole life. It's not hard when you're that good. I mean, the kid, he understands how to play. He's a winner. He plays the right way. He moves the basketball. He plays defense. He's not afraid to talk to his teammates. Like I told you guys yesterday, like everything that I was looking at him to be is what I'm seeing out there on the floor. So I'm really, really pleased.
You mentioned Dennis and defense. And when you talk about picking up 94 feet, like how much do you expect that? Or are there other guys you want to see it from? And how just disruptive can you guys be, for other teams in that way?
Yeah, listen, that is hard, first of all. But, we expect it from everybody because sometimes they're going to send their point guard down the floor and then he's smart enough to figure it out. But at the same time, we want to get our defense set. So, scoring the ball is good. We're going to have to get to the free throw line because when you get to the free throw line, you can get your defense set. So, on misses, it's a little bit harder, obviously, to pick up, but we still want to make sure that our pickup points are extremely high. When we have an opportunity, dead balls, free throws, anytime that there's an opportunity to pick up 94 feet, we should be talking to the person in front of us.
Dennis Schroder in particular, he sounds like a coach, and I know that's what you want out there on the floor. Do y'all have those conversations? Did they come across to you?
Yeah, because, part of the couple questions that he hit me with immediately, especially defensively, was like, about squaring up the ball and different things. And similar for Rick, for me, was like he gave me the ability to do things that everybody didn't get to do because he knew that I could do some things. Well, Dennis is the same way. It's like, well, this is what we do as a team, but you have the ability to be a free safety sometimes if you want to. But previously we closed out like on the high side and different stuff, and we weren't a great defensive team, and you're closing out to give an advantage, in my opinion. I don't want no advantages. We closing out square, right in front of the person. And now you have to, my point to him was, you have to be able to understand where your help's at and all that. I get that. But we not trying to give up no advantages. When that time comes, there'll be game plan specific and different things, but we want to close out right in front of people and be there on the catch.
Dennis said for the first day he was pretty impressed with how the group came together and seemed to gel so quickly. Chemistry was so big with you and your teammates back in the day. Have you noticed like that seamless transition with this group?
A lot of it was him, to be quite frank with you. Like when you have a point guard that moves the ball around and advances it up the floor when you're open, it makes you want to run. It makes you want to play. It makes, we in the sandbox together and we sharing toys. So it was good to see. And that was, like I said, everything. As I identify him and talk to Scott about it, like, that's who we need. And then we were able to get him, and I'm extremely happy.
That last bit, too, just, again, excites me about the leadership of Dennis Schroder. It's this how seamlessly this team has come together so quickly and started playing together comes from how Schroder plays as a point guard and how he inspires his teammates with the way that he plays and shares the basketball and makes plays for others and is wanting to push the tempo and emphasize that pace. So it's a lot of pressure to put on the shoulders of Dennis Schroder, but he's a veteran. He's played in significantly more pressure packed situations, not just in the NBA, but especially overseas. Right. So I just hope he's up for the challenge because it's very, very clear that Doug Christie, this team, the front office, the coaching staff, they're putting a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. That's what it is being a point guard in the NBA level, the best league in the world. But here in Sacramento, when you're not just the point guard, you're the only point guard on this team, and you're expected to be the glue to make this incredibly talented but seemingly not so cohesive team stick and work together. So I'm excited to see how Dennis lives up to that challenge. But the other stuff Doug said there, like I thought was great. Like again, the emphasis on the conditioning. They want to be the most well conditioned. He talked about this team first and foremost. Their goal is going to be to stop you. Right? It's one thing to like allow or force in a direction or try and push an offensive player towards where the help defense is. And Doug said that there will be game plans for certain teams. We will have game plans of what to do as a team defensively to handle this player or this scheme or whatever. But first and foremost, the expectation is going to be, I am going to stop my guy. It's going to be one-on-one. I am not going to let myself be beat. And that's nice to hear because there are players on this roster that aren't necessarily known as the best on-ball individual defenders, but if they can take the pride of, doesn't mean they're not going to be beat every once in a while. That's what the help defense and rotations are for. But it did seem like under Mike Brown and certainly under Luke Walton before Mike Brown that the Kings were almost reserved to the fact or resigned to the fact that it was like, yeah, we're going to get beat off the dribble. We're going to get beaten the one-on-one. So we're going to rotate and we're going to have help heavy defensive schemes. And like I guess in Doug's mind, it's like you're already willingly giving up the first line of defense as a choice. And we're not going to let that happen. So Doug is a defensive minded guy. He knows what it takes to play defense at an extremely high level in the NBA. So we have to take his word and take his philosophy and trust it. And hopefully this roster can back that up. Before we hear from Zack Lavine, I want to remind you that today's episode of Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. And it's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, both on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, it's easy to do. Monarch is for you. It does all of the heavy lifting, right? You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending so you can finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. You can identify where your money is going and that you aren't actually saving as much money as you thought you were or need to for a big purchase coming up or for your retirement. Monarch helps you notice any inefficient investment allocation and discovers forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Also helps you maximize your investments, increase your savings rate. Even reviewing finances with your partner and or financial advisor is easier with Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Finally, let's hear from Zack Lavine. Lavine talking about just the energy of this first day of training camp. And towards the end, I believe you're going to hear Zack talk about the leadership, the communication. And I have some things that I want to say in response to what he had to say. But here's Zack Lavine from day one.
How do you see Dennis getting acclimated with everything?
Yeah, Dennis is a pro. He's been playing professional basketball since he was 16. So, he caught on real fast. He's super smart. Gets the ball up the court fast, so it's gonna be a really easy transition.
Doug wants you guys to be the most conditioned or one of the best conditioned teams in the NBA. Is that the dog days of summer right now, where you guys run a bunch and try to get into that conditioning?
Yeah, I mean, individually, I always feel like I've always been one of the best conditioned guys, so it's never something hard for me. I think it's something that you take on as the type of player you want to be. You got to be conditioned, but for the entire team, we have to be if they want us to be picking up 94 feet. So, I think everybody's going to be in good condition.
It's Doug's first day of training camp as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Played for a number of coaches. How do you assess just how he's doing with the job and taking care of business so far?
Doug's been great, man, and he has a great supporting staff as well. I think that's what means the most to him is he has a bunch of guys that he trusts, to the left and right of him, to where he might even not have to do as much talking, as much of the heavy lifting, and he can use his voice in areas that he wants to. So I'm just glad he's comfortable and he's he's not looking over his shoulder. That's always a great feeling.
When you look at the things Dennis does defensively, how important is it for him to set the tone, and can that kind of influence like the rest of the group right from the start?
Yeah, I mean Dennis has always been a guy that gets after it defensively, and with him being the point guard of the team, his voice speaks volumes. But I think it's not just him; it has to be on all of us. For me to Domas, DeMar, all the way down. If we take an emphasis on that side, everyone has to follow.
Vocally, who was big today? Who was speaking up vocally?
I think everybody was. I know you guys always want to pick out somebody like who has the best voice and who's the leader. It's unless you have somebody that's a big talker on the team. Everyone has used their voice individually, and I don't. I speak up when I need to, obviously, and then DeMar speaks to the group. Doug talks, Dennis says some stuff. Malik doesn't stop talking. So, it's a bunch of that stuff, but it's even Keegan said something today, so I think it was good.
Competing against Dennis, seeing him be kind of that agitator at times, what kind of benefit is having someone like that on your team when you guys go out there?
Dennis is a dude that you hate to play against but love him on your team. Yeah. We played against her a number of times over the last years, and he's a really good player. That's why all these teams want him as well. He's been to a lot of these different places, but he's being asked to go there because he's wanted. So I'm glad he's here.
Did Zack Lavine say that Keegan Murray spoke up today and said something? Did you hear that? Okay, Keegan. I'm okay with that. Hey, you talk about being more assertive. It doesn't just have to be demanding the basketball on the floor. If Keegan Murray's speaking up, it's what we want him to do. He's been challenged by his coaches to do that. He's been challenged by the general manager of the team, Scott Perry, to do that. We've been asking for that for years from him. He's in year 4. He has more of that veteran status, that confidence, hopefully, to speak his mind. He's probably not the loudest guy in the room still, of course, especially when Zach said that Malik Monk doesn't stop talking. I'm so glad Malik is still on this team. I'm not even going to front about it. Like, I know it was a very serious possibility that the Kings moved on from him this summer, and they were looking for a lot of ways to make that happen. And there's no promise that Malik Monk is going to be on this team by the end of the season or that he makes it past the trade deadline as a member of the Sacramento Kings. But he's here now, and he's just such a pleasure, in my opinion, just to be able to talk to and to cover. And he's got just such a radiant personality that everybody that plays with him, even if he doesn't stop talking, like they love it. Right. So I'm so glad Malik Monk is still a part of this team. And I like that Zach said, like, everybody's talking. It doesn't have to be just one guy. This is something that a lot of pressure that we put on De'Aaron Fox, I feel, during his time here in Sacramento, is we know he was a leader by example, but is he talking enough? Is he talking enough? And we've talked about this Kings team needs an enforcer for years. And maybe they do not have a Draymond Green type enforcer on this team, but Dennis Schroder's voice can carry weight. Of course, DeMar DeRozan's voice carries weight. He doesn't need to yell to get his point across. Malik Monk might use humor to make a point, but is also going to be the guy in the front when there's any kind of altercation, whether it's grabbing a teammate to pull him away or getting in the face of the opposing team, right? Leadership and being a voice can come in a lot of different forms. And it sounds like the Kings have a lot of different voices who are willing to speak up. And the fact that they're comfortable doing that on day one of training camp is really encouraging. If there's a benefit to the Kings having one of the oldest rosters in the league, it's that there's a lot of veterans who have been there, done that know the game and can speak their mind. And if I'm Devin Carter, Neat Clifford, Maxime Reynaud, I'm a sponge. I'm just listening and taking everything in, hopefully asking a bunch of questions and trying to make the most out of this week of training camp. Before we wrap up, other side news has very little to do with the Kings, but it was a big story involving the Kings all summer. Jonathan Kuminga is staying with the Golden State Warriors. He ended up agreeing to a 2-year deal. It was around in total like $15 million more, I think, than the Warriors initially offered for their 2-year deal. But the second year is a team option, giving the Warriors flexibility and making that contract easier to trade. And Kuminga apparently accepted it because it would allow him, after he does get traded, whatever new team he goes to, they can waive that team option and then renegotiate a new deal. And it allows him to kind of gamble on himself and get a potentially even better deal and bigger payday going forward after that. But here's the bottom line of the situation. As snarky as I want to be, like, the Warriors, they won. Like, they came out on top. This was a long, dragged out stalemate, and the Warriors were very stubborn. Kuminga was very stubborn, and it was annoying as hell, but it worked out for the Warriors. Now they have to, like, they're nearly a second apron team. They finished like $2 million under the second apron. And this is a team that I think I do think the Warriors are probably going to be a better team than the Sacramento Kings, or probably should be, but not by a whole heck of a lot. Like, if the Warriors are a top 6 team in the Western Conference, they're at best 5, probably 6. They might even be a high-end play-in team, like a 7 or 8. So I don't know if you want to be flirting with the second apron when that's the case, but the Warriors are also, like, structuring this deal with Kuminga so that they can trade him, and he becomes trade eligible in January, and the trade deadline's obviously in late February. So we'll see what the Warriors are able to do, and if they're able to trade Jonathan Kuminga for a piece that they need to maximize Steph Curry right now. I have no idea. I will say pretty confidently, I feel like any Jonathan Kuminga to the Sacramento Kings in the short term is dead. Like, I don't think the Kings are going to be the team that has what the Warriors are looking for. In fact, I know we've seen through these negotiations this summer, Kings don't really have anything that they're willing to move on that the Warriors are interested in. The Kings are not trading Keegan Murray. The Kings are probably not trading Keon Ellis unless Keon Ellis is leaving. And even then, Keon Ellis makes $2.5 million. Jonathan Kuminga makes over 20. Like, that math ain't mathin'. So to me, like, Kuminga to the Kings is gone. But again, the Sacramento Kings weren't a Jonathan Kuminga away from anything. Would he have been a great opportunity and an exciting young player to have here to add to this core? Yes, and that's what the Kings looked at him as and were trying to pursue him as. But they weren't desperate. They decided not to up their deal, and they missed out on him. Oh well. The Kings are going to be fine. We'll see how fine Kuminga is, and the Warriors, we'll see what they can do with trading him starting in January. So the Kuminga saga is over. Thank God. Now we can just actually focus on Kings basketball again. I will be at day 2 of training camp inside the Kings practice facility tomorrow, so expect another episode just like this. I'm sure we'll speak with Doug Christie and 2 other players tomorrow. I'll let you know what I noticed from day 2 of training camp. They'll have training camp every single day for the rest of the week through Saturday. So plenty to get to. Buckle up. We're getting it going. And like I said, Kings preseason basketball is, I think, a week from tomorrow. Pretty sure Wednesday, October 8th. Let me just look it up to double check. Because I'm pretty sure Wednesday, October 8th, the Sacramento Kings will be in action. Yes, Wednesday, October 8th, the Kings will host the Toronto Raptors inside the Golden One Center. So we'll have Kings basketball a week from tomorrow. It's exciting. Here we go. Thank you for listening to the Locked On Kings podcast. As always, appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.